Ethan Cross had never expected his life to change so suddenly. One moment, he was in his small apartment on Earth, fixing a faulty water heater, and wondering if he would ever find a real purpose. The next, a message arrived, not by email or phone, but through a shimmering holographic projector that appeared in his living room like something from a science fiction movie. The message carried a royal seal from the Orion Stellar Kingdom, a place he had only read about in books. The message was simple, yet shocking. Ethan Cross, you are hereby summoned to inherit the estate and hand of Princess Lyra of Orion. Your journey begins immediately. Ethan blinked, thinking he must be dreaming or that some prank had gone too far. Princess Lyra, he murmured. And inherit her? His mind reeled. How could a human, one who had barely left Earth's orbit, be chosen for something so unimaginable? And why him? Almost instantly, a sleek shuttle appeared outside his apartment building. It hovered silently, its metallic surface reflecting the morning sun. A voice spoke through the hull. "Mr. Cross, your transport is ready." Do not resist. Compliance is mandatory. Ethan had no choice. The shuttle was faster than any plane he had ever seen. Within minutes, he was lifted above Earth and propelled into space, the planet shrinking behind him. The stars stretched into streams of light, and for the first time in his life, he felt the hum of excitement, mixed with terror. When he arrived at the capital of Orion, the grandeur of the city left him breathless. Towers of translucent crystal rose above the clouds, glowing with an inner light. Airborne vehicles zipped between buildings in complex patterns, and alien beings of all shapes and sizes moved with purpose through the streets. He realized he had entered a world far beyond human imagination. Ethan was escorted into the council hall, a massive chamber with walls that shimmered like liquid metal. The Galactic Council, a group of representatives from the most powerful alien species, filled the room. They were tall, elegant, and intimidating, each exuding authority, their eyes fixed on him with curiosity and thinly veiled amusement. At the center of the hall was a pedestal where the will of the late King Veyron would be read. Ethan could barely breathe as he stood there, feeling completely out of place. Then the High Chancellor, a towering figure with iridescent scales, began to speak. "It is with great ceremony that we announce the will of our late king." The Chancellor's voice echoed through the hall. "The king has chosen, in his final act, to leave Princess Lyra and her estate to a human from a distant planet. Ethan Cross, you are now the designated heir." The hall erupted into laughter. Alien voices rang with disbelief and mockery. "A human?" One of them scoffed, wings fluttering with derision. "They can barely survive in space, let alone rule a kingdom." He had expected skepticism, but not this level of open ridicule. His hands shook as he tried to process what was happening. All eyes were on him, waiting for a reaction. Is this some kind of joke?" he stammered, his voice barely audible. The Chancellor's eyes narrowed. "It is no joke, Mr. Cross.
The will is clear. You are to inherit Princess Lyra and her holdings.
The late king's intentions are not for you to question." Ethan swallowed hard. He was terrified, but he also felt a spark of determination. He had never been anyone special. On Earth, he was just another engineer struggling to make ends meet. But here, in this alien world, something remarkable had chosen him. Somehow, King Veyron had seen potential in a human, and that potential was now his responsibility. After the laughter subsided, Ethan was taken to a private chamber to prepare for his meeting with Princess Lyra. He had heard the rumors. She was considered ugly by alien standards, her appearance unusual and unrefined. The council expected Ethan to be repulsed, to fail the king's plan before he even began. But he reminded himself that he had no reason to judge anyone by looks. Humans valued intelligence, courage, and heart. Perhaps the king had too. When Ethan finally met Lyra, he was struck not by her appearance, but by her presence. She stood in a room filled with soft, ambient light, her posture straight and commanding. Her hair fell in wild, unkempt waves, and her eyes, large and dark, seemed to see straight through him. She did not smile, nor did she show fear. Instead, there was a quiet strength in her gaze. "You are the human," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I suppose the council laughed when they sent you to me." "They did," Ethan admitted, feeling awkward. I didn't expect this, honestly."
"I'm not sure I even belong here." Lyra studied him for a moment, then tilted her head slightly.
"Belonging is not always about where you come from. Sometimes it is about what you can do." Ethan found himself nodding, sensing that this princess, though labeled ugly and unconventional, was sharp, intelligent, and perhaps more capable than anyone in this hall of aliens. He realized that surviving here would require more than courage. It would require adaptability, quick thinking, and trust. As days passed, Ethan began learning the rules of the palace, the unspoken etiquette, and the delicate politics of the council. Alien nobles whispered behind his back, mocking his human habits, the way he ate, the way he walked, even the way he spoke. But he also discovered allies, minor council members and palace staff who admired his ingenuity and honesty. They quietly offered guidance and protection, recognizing that the human might be the key to the kingdom's future. Lyra, too, tested him, asking questions that challenged his logic and judgment. "Humans are simple," one council member had said. "They cannot grasp our complexities." But Ethan surprised them. He solved problems in ways the council had never anticipated, using creativity and reasoning instead of brute force or tradition. Lyra's respect grew, though she kept it carefully hidden from the prying eyes of the court. One evening, while exploring the palace library, Ethan discovered something that confirmed King Veyron's wisdom. Hidden in the archives were blueprints and ancient texts describing technologies linked to Lyra's lineage, abilities that no alien could fully harness. The texts hinted that only someone with a human mind, unbound by centuries of alien tradition, could activate the mechanisms and unlock their true potential. Ethan realized that the laughter of the council was premature. They had underestimated humans and underestimated him. For the first time, he felt a surge of confidence. Perhaps he was exactly what the king had intended, someone who could see possibilities others could not. As the first part of his journey ended, Ethan and Lyra stood together on a balcony overlooking the luminous city. The sky was filled with distant stars, and the hum of alien traffic echoed below. "You have no idea what you've stepped into," Lyra said quietly. "I think I have an idea," Ethan replied, staring at the horizon. "And I think we might just surprise them." Above them, the council watched, still skeptical, still amused. But the first cracks of doubt had begun to form. The human had arrived, and the princess, once thought weak and insignificant, had found a partner in him. Together, they would challenge the galaxy's assumptions, and perhaps, in time, change the course of history. Days passed in the Orion Palace, and Ethan slowly began to understand the subtle rules that governed this alien world. Every hallway, every chamber, every glance from the council carried meaning. Humans relied on instinct and improvisation, but here, tradition ruled, and deviation was often met with suspicion or outright hostility. Despite the laughter and whispered insults, Ethan found himself growing more confident. He studied the palace layouts, learned the hierarchy, and familiarized himself with alien customs. Yet no matter how prepared he tried to be, the council's eyes were always on him, judging, waiting for a mistake. Lyra, for her part, was a constant enigma, while others whispered about her so-called ugliness. Ethan began to see what they could not. She moved with precision, her eyes sharp, calculating. She spoke rarely, but each word carried weight. She challenged him in ways that forced him to think beyond human limitations. One afternoon, Lyra led Ethan through the gardens of the palace, a sprawling space filled with alien flora. Plants shimmered with bioluminescent light, their leaves shifting colors as though responding to the visitor's presence. Birds with translucent wings glided in arcs above their heads. The beauty of it left Ethan momentarily speechless. "Do you like it?" Lyra asked. "It's incredible," Ethan admitted. "I've never seen anything like it." Lyra smiled faintly.
"This palace hides many wonders, but the council fears change. They fear what they cannot control."
"That is why they laugh at you."
Ethan frowned. "Then what do we do?"
"Do we just survive?" Lyra looked at him seriously. "Survival is only the first step.
The real challenge is proving that what they fear is not weakness. It is strength."
Ethan nodded. That night he began experimenting in secret, studying the palace archives and ancient texts.
Among the writings, he discovered descriptions of technologies tied to Lyra's bloodline, mechanisms designed to protect the kingdom, accessible only to someone with a mind unbound by centuries of rigid tradition. The texts were complex, almost impossible for a human to interpret, but Ethan's engineering background gave him an advantage. He could see patterns, connections, and possibilities that the aliens overlooked. Meanwhile, the council's ridicule did not abate. Minor nobles openly mocked Ethan's clumsiness with alien tools, laughed at his strange posture, and whispered that he would fail before the first month was over. Even some palace staff treated him with disdain, seeing a human as inferior to the centuries-old alien bloodlines. Each insult fueled his determination. He focused on what he could control, learning, observing, and forming alliances. He also realized that Lyra was not just a princess. She was a partner. While the council underestimated him, they underestimated her as well. Her intelligence and curiosity were hidden behind her so-called flaws. One evening, Ethan and Lyra were summoned to a council meeting. The chamber was tense, filled with representatives from distant star systems. Whispers spread as they entered. The council expected another embarrassing display from the human heir, but Ethan had prepared. "Mr. Cross," the High Chancellor said, his voice echoing in the hall, "you are still new to our ways. You must understand that you cannot act as if human rules apply here." "I understand," he said, keeping his tone calm. "But I also believe that some human ways may help the kingdom in ways others cannot see. I ask only for the chance to prove it." Laughter erupted again, low and mocking. Lyra placed a hand lightly on Ethan's arm. "Do not let them unsettle you," she whispered. "They laugh because they cannot imagine someone outside their traditions being effective." The meeting continued, and the council presented hypothetical challenges: a simulated attack on the kingdom, a political dispute with a neighboring star system, and a series of technical problems involving the kingdom's defense systems. Most humans would have panicked, but Ethan approached each scenario logically, combining his human ingenuity with the hints he had gathered from Lyra's lineage. He proposed unconventional strategies that surprised even the most skeptical council members. For instance, he suggested reconfiguring a defensive shield to create an energy pulse capable of repelling enemy ships, something no alien had attempted because tradition dictated standard operating procedures. Lyra watched with admiration as Ethan explained his ideas. "You think differently," she said quietly. Ethan shrugged. "I think practically. Sometimes, what others call foolish is just a new perspective." By the end of the meeting, a few council members who had been openly hostile began to nod in cautious approval. While not everyone was convinced, it was the first sign that Ethan's human approach might be valuable after all. Outside the chamber, whispers continued. "The human might have potential," one alien muttered, though no one admitted it openly. The laughter had not vanished, but seeds of doubt were being planted. In the days that followed, Ethan and Lyra grew closer. They shared meals, explored hidden corners of the palace, and studied ancient texts together. Lyra taught him the customs of her people, the intricacies of court etiquette, and the subtle power dynamics that could make or break a leader. Ethan, in turn, showed her human problem-solving methods, how to think outside the rigid structures that the council prized. One night, while walking through a quiet corridor, Lyra stopped and looked at him. "Do you realize what you've done already?" she asked. Ethan frowned. "I've barely done anything. I'm just trying to survive." "No," Lyra said firmly. "You've shown that being human is not a weakness. The council may not admit it, but they are starting to see the value in your mind, your courage, and your adaptability."
"You are changing the way they think." Ethan felt a strange pride.
He had never imagined that a simple human could have such an impact in a galaxy that had laughed at him from the start. Yet he also knew that the real challenges were only beginning. As weeks passed, Ethan began uncovering more secrets. Hidden in the archives were mentions of ancient defense mechanisms tied to Lyra's lineage, machines, energy conduits, and technologies that no alien could fully operate. The texts hinted that only someone with a mind unbound by centuries of alien tradition, someone human, could unlock their potential. Ethan realized that King Veyron had chosen wisely. The laughter of the council was premature. Then came the first real test. A minor noble, jealous of Ethan's growing influence and close relationship with Lyra, attempted to sabotage one of the palace's key energy conduits. The disruption could have crippled the kingdom's defenses, leaving it vulnerable to external threats. While the council panicked, Ethan quickly analyzed the system. Using human engineering principles combined with his observations of alien technology, he devised a solution to stabilize the conduit. Lyra assisted, guiding him through the nuances of her people's technology. Together, they not only repaired the damage, but improved the system's efficiency. The result stunned the council. A few members who had been openly hostile were forced to acknowledge that the human had skills far beyond their expectations.
"This is unexpected," the High Chancellor muttered, trying to hide his surprise. "The human may indeed be useful."
Ethan smiled quietly. He knew it was only the beginning. The council's laughter had faded slightly, replaced by a mix of curiosity and cautious respect. But he also knew that more significant challenges awaited. The galaxy was vast, and threats were never far away. As he and Lyra stood together on the balcony overlooking the city, Ethan felt a sense of purpose he had never known. This world, with its alien customs and ancient politics, was no longer just a distant fantasy. It was real, and he was a part of it. He had been chosen for a reason, and he intended to prove that humans were more than the council had ever imagined. Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder. "The council may not like it, but they will have to accept that we are a team, and when the galaxy tests us, we will show them what humans, and I, can do."
"Then let them come. We'll be ready."
And somewhere in the distant reaches of the galaxy, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if heralding the rise of a human who would defy expectations, alongside a princess who had once been underestimated. Together, they would face the unknown, challenge prejudice, and begin a journey that could change the fate of the Orion Stellar Kingdom forever. Ethan had grown accustomed to the alien palace, but he knew that comfort was dangerous. The council still watched him closely, and the whispers of ridicule had never fully disappeared. He had proven his intelligence, his courage, and even his loyalty. But in the Orion Stellar Kingdom, past achievements mattered less than the next crisis. That crisis arrived faster than anyone expected. A warning arrived from the outer colonies. A warlord named Cale Thorn, who had long coveted the Orion Kingdom's resources, had begun mobilizing a fleet. His ships, armed with destructive energy weapons, were heading toward the kingdom's borders. The council panicked. They had never faced a human-led strategy before, and the alien armies had relied on predictable tactics for centuries. Ethan was called to a council meeting immediately. As he entered the chamber, the tension was palpable. Aliens of all species argued, voices overlapping in panic and fear. The High Chancellor, usually composed, looked troubled. "The fleet approaches in less than 40 standard hours," he said. "If we fail, our colonies will fall and the kingdom will be overrun." One council member turned to Ethan, her scales glinting in the chamber light. "Human," she said, her tone sharp. "Your ideas worked for minor problems."
"Do you truly believe you can handle a full-scale attack?" Ethan stood tall, refusing to be intimidated. "I know I can't do it alone," he said.
"But if we combine the Council's resources with strategies that are unconventional, we can defend the kingdom." Lyra stepped forward. "He is right. You all underestimate human creativity. We have allies in unexpected places, and Ethan sees possibilities you refuse to consider." "We must trust him, or face defeat." The council murmured, some in doubt, some in anger. But time was too short for endless debate. Plans had to be made, and Ethan was immediately put in charge of coordinating the defense. He began by analyzing the kingdom's defense systems, many of which had been in place for centuries. He noted weaknesses the aliens had ignored: energy shields that relied on outdated patterns, defense drones that followed predictable paths, and communication systems that could be disrupted by a clever opponent. Ethan suggested reorganizing the defense, creating unpredictable patterns for the shields, reprogramming the drones to move in coordinated swarms, and using decoy signals to confuse the enemy fleet. Lyra worked with him, her knowledge of alien technology proving invaluable. Together, they created a plan that combined human ingenuity with Lyra's insider understanding of the kingdom's systems. Some council members protested.
"This is risky," one shouted. "We are abandoning centuries of tradition."
"Tradition hasn't protected us from Kale Thorn," he said. "This will." As the first warning lights signaled the approach of Kale Thorn's fleet, Ethan and Lyra prepared for battle. The sky outside the palace glowed with the energy of distant stars, and the first enemy ships appeared as tiny points of light growing rapidly closer. Ethan gave orders coordinating the shield rotations, drone swarms, and countermeasures. The council watched in astonishment as the systems, under his guidance, reacted faster than any alien strategist could have imagined. The first wave of enemy ships struck the outer shield. Energy pulses collided in brilliant bursts, shaking the planet's orbit slightly. Many ships were destroyed immediately, but Kale Thorn's fleet was vast, and the battle had only begun. Ethan realized that brute force would not win this fight. He needed creativity, and he needed to exploit Kale's assumptions. The warlord expected the Orion Kingdom to follow predictable patterns. Ethan decided to break them. He created phantom energy signatures, making some areas appear weak while concentrating power elsewhere. He directed drone swarms to strike from unexpected angles. He even used small shuttlecraft to deliver quick, precise attacks on key enemy systems. Lyra was at his side throughout, coordinating with palace engineers and leading her own teams. She activated mechanisms hidden in the archives that only someone with Ethan's guidance could operate. Ancient defenses capable of amplifying energy shields and redirecting attacks. Kale Thorn's fleet began to falter. His ships, designed to overwhelm through sheer force, could not adapt to Ethan's strategies. The council, once dismissive, stared in disbelief as the human orchestrated a defense that seemed impossible. But the battle was far from over. Kyles, realizing his fleet was being outmaneuvered, personally boarded a command ship and attempted a direct strike on the palace. The council panicked. "We are doomed!" someone cried. Ethan remained calm. He studied the command ship's trajectory and calculated its vulnerabilities. Using a combination of shield pulses and drone coordination, he intercepted the ship before it could reach the palace. Kale Thorn, confident in his own superiority, found himself outwitted by a human. Meanwhile, inside the palace, a group of traitorous nobles attempted to sabotage the defense systems, hoping to ensure the kingdom's fall and discredit Ethan. Lyra confronted them directly, her voice cold and commanding.
"Your plans end here."
"You will not destroy the kingdom from within." The nobles hesitated, unprepared for her decisiveness. Ethan quickly isolated their interference, shutting down the sabotage attempt before it could succeed. The human and the princess had acted in perfect synchrony, a combination the council had never anticipated. By the end of the first day of battle, Cale Thorne's fleet was severely weakened. Many of his ships were destroyed, others retreated, and his forces began to lose morale. The council, which had once mocked Ethan, now watched with a mix of fear and admiration. Even the High Chancellor could not hide his astonishment. "You may have saved us," he admitted, though his pride made the words difficult. Ethan shook his head. "We saved ourselves. The fleet underestimated the kingdom, and underestimated humans." "And underestimated me," she added. "Together, we are stronger than anyone expected." As the stars settled and the dust of battle drifted away, Ethan realized that this victory was only the beginning. Cale Thorne would not give up easily. There would be more challenges, more attacks, and more tests of their abilities. But for the first time, Ethan felt a sense of belonging in this alien world. He was not just a human visitor or a pawn of the king's will. He was a strategist, a leader, and a partner to Lyra. In the following days, Ethan continued to strengthen the kingdom's defenses. He trained palace engineers to think creatively, incorporating human techniques into alien technology. He worked with Lyra to uncover more secrets of her lineage, discovering hidden rooms, dormant energy systems, and long-forgotten mechanisms designed to protect the kingdom. The council, once openly hostile, began to accept him. Not fully, but enough to recognize that he was indispensable. Their laughter had turned into wary respect. Aliens who had scoffed at him now sought his advice in minor matters, testing their trust cautiously. Ethan also noticed a change in Lyra. She was more confident, more assertive, and more willing to challenge the council openly. The partnership between human and princess was becoming a symbol of hope for the kingdom, a demonstration that strength did not come from appearance, tradition, or lineage alone. But despite the victories, Ethan knew that Cale Thorne remained a threat. The warlord had not been fully defeated, only delayed. Intelligence reports suggested that he was regrouping, planning a larger attack with reinforcements from allied systems. The council's initial laughter had been replaced by fear, and Ethan knew that their skepticism would return if he failed. One evening, Ethan and Lyra stood together on the balcony overlooking the palace gardens, the city below bathed in the soft glow of alien lights. "We've done well," Lyra said, her voice calm but firm. "The council may not admit it, but our actions have changed their perception. They are beginning to see the value in what humans can do." Ethan nodded. "Yes, but this is just the start. Cale Thorne will come back, and next time, he will not underestimate us. We need to be ready."
Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder.
"Then we will be. Together, we are stronger than anyone expects."
"We have the advantage of thinking differently, of acting outside their rules. That is our strength."
Ethan felt a surge of determination. For the first time, he realized that the ridicule, the fear, and the uncertainty had all prepared him for this moment. Humans were adaptable, creative, and resilient, and with Lyra at his side, there was no challenge they could not face. As the stars twinkled above, Ethan knew that the galaxy had begun to take notice. The council had laughed at him, alien nobles had mocked him, and even distant worlds had doubted a human's worth. But those doubts were fading. The human had proven himself, and the princess, once underestimated, had found her equal in him. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Ethan and Lyra were ready to face whatever came next, knowing that together they could defy expectations, challenge prejudice, and protect the kingdom from threats, both within and beyond. And somewhere, beyond the distant stars, Cale Thorne plotted his next move, unaware that his greatest opponent was not an alien strategist, but a human who had learned to see the galaxy in ways no one else could. The calm that had settled over the Orion stellar kingdom was deceptive. Ethan and Lyra knew that Cale Thorne would not remain idle. The warlord had retreated, but intelligence reports indicated he was gathering reinforcements from neighboring systems, aliens loyal to his cruelty, mercenaries driven by greed, and fleets he had bribed with stolen resources. This time, Ethan realized, the attack would be larger, more coordinated, and far deadlier. He spent hours with Lyra in the palace archives, examining ancient texts, blueprints, and records left by her father. King Veyron had not only prepared the kingdom with defenses, but had also left hints about traps, secret weapons, and hidden power sources that only someone with human ingenuity could unlock. Ethan felt a thrill of anticipation. Finally, the king's faith in a human mind made sense. Humans could think outside centuries of tradition, outside rigid protocols, and adapt quickly to new threats. Meanwhile, the council, though now more respectful, still doubted that humans could handle the full responsibility of defending a kingdom. Ethan ignored the whispers. Experience had taught him that doubt was only a weapon for the fearful. Actions, not opinions, determined outcomes. The first sign of Cale Thorne's approach came as a faint tremor in the palace's energy grid. Sensors detected hundreds of ships entering the outer rim, forming formations that signaled an organized assault. Unlike before, this fleet was massive. It was clear that Cale had learned from his prior defeat. He would not underestimate the kingdom again. Ethan called an emergency council meeting. Lyra accompanied him, her presence commanding the attention of every member.
We cannot rely solely on tradition this time, Ethan began. We must be unpredictable, precise, and coordinated in ways they cannot anticipate.
This is not just defense. It is a test of strategy and creativity.
Some council members looked uneasy.
Human, the High Chancellor said. The fleet is larger than anything we have faced. Are you certain we can succeed? Ethan's eyes met Lyra's for a brief moment. Certain we can try. And with her at my side, we have an advantage no one expects. The preparations began immediately. Ethan divided the kingdom's defenses into multiple layers. Decoy energy fields, trap corridors for enemy ships, reprogrammed drone swarms, and hidden weapons connected to ancient systems. Lyra oversaw teams of engineers, activating devices that had remained dormant for centuries. Together, they synchronized human ingenuity with the kingdom's forgotten technologies. The council watched, some still skeptical, but even they could see the results. Energy pulses, once rigid and predictable, now moved in patterns that seemed chaotic yet precise. Defense drones coordinated like never before. Shields rotated dynamically, creating illusions of weakness in some areas while hiding real power in others. When Cale Thorne's fleet arrived at the edge of the system, the battle began. Unlike the previous attack, this was relentless. Hundreds of ships unleashed energy blasts toward the kingdom, and the outer shields flickered under the assault. But Ethan's strategies held. Decoy signals misled groups of enemy ships into traps. Drones intercepted reinforcements, and hidden weapons disabled critical enemy systems. Lyra moved through the command center with calm authority, adjusting systems in real time and coordinating with palace engineers. Ethan could see her brilliance in action, and for the first time he realized that she was not merely a princess who had been underestimated. She was a leader in her own right. Kyle, realizing that his conventional tactics were failing, ordered a direct strike on the palace. This time, however, Ethan anticipated it. Using energy corridors described in Lyra's father's texts, he created a pathway that would channel the attack into containment fields. The enemy fire struck the palace defenses but was absorbed and redirected, leaving the core structures untouched. Furious, KL deployed his elite strike teams, boarding smaller ships and attempting to infiltrate the palace directly. Ethan and Lyra had prepared for this as well. Automated defenses, combined with human ingenuity, intercepted the teams. Hidden energy barriers activated at the precise moments, and drone swarms neutralized intruders with accuracy and minimal risk to civilians. Inside the palace, Lyra confronted traitorous nobles who attempted to exploit the chaos. "Your time is over," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. You will not betray the kingdom. Her command, coupled with Ethan's rapid coordination of palace security, neutralized the sabotage. The council's eyes, previously skeptical, were now filled with admiration. Ethan, surveying the battlefield from the command center, realized that Cale Thorne was adapting. The warlord was clever, relentless, and dangerous. But he underestimated one thing: human adaptability. Ethan's mind raced as he devised a new plan. Using a combination of misdirection, trap corridors, and Lyra's hidden systems, he would draw Cale into a controlled engagement, a final confrontation where every advantage was in their favor. The plan was risky. It required precise timing, trust, and perfect coordination between human and princess. But Ethan knew they had no choice. The future of the Orion Stellar Kingdom depended on it. As Cale Thorne's flagship advanced into the trap corridor, Ethan initiated the sequence. Energy fields closed behind the ship, isolating it from reinforcements. Hidden drones disabled its propulsion, and ancient mechanisms designed by King Veyron engaged, draining power from the warlord's systems. Cale's fleet attempted to intervene, but the decoy shields and drone swarms misled them, breaking their coordination. Panic spread among the enemy ranks as they realized their leader was trapped and their fleet faltering. Inside the flagship, Cale Thorne fumed. He had underestimated the human. He had dismissed the princess. Now he faced defeat at the hands of what he had once considered weak. Ethan and Lyra led a boarding team directly into Cale's ship, using small shuttles that bypassed enemy sensors. Their arrival caught Cale by surprise. The warlord, armored and armed, confronted them. "You, a human, and a princess?" he growled.
"You cannot stop me!" Ethan stepped forward. "We already have."
"Your fleet is falling, your systems are failing, and your plans are over. It's time to end this." Cale lunged, but Lyra moved with precision, activating energy restraints embedded in the ship's corridors. Ethan coordinated with drones to disable weapons and isolate the warlord. Together, they cornered him, leaving no room for escape. Cale Thorne, realizing his defeat, struggled in fury, but it was useless. The combined strategy, creativity, and courage of human and princess had prevailed. He was captured, his fleet in retreat, and the Orion Stellar Kingdom safe once more. Back in the council chamber, the atmosphere was transformed. The members who had once laughed openly at Ethan now stood in respect. The High Chancellor spoke, voice filled with reluctant admiration. "Human, you have proven that our prejudices were misplaced. You and Princess Lyra have defended the kingdom with skill beyond expectation." Ethan nodded, glancing at Lyra. "We did what needed to be done. The kingdom survived because we worked together, not because of tradition or fear." Lyra smiled faintly. "And because humans can see what others overlook."
The council's laughter had been replaced by quiet acknowledgement.
Aliens who had mocked Ethan before now sought his advice, curious about his methods and ideas. The human had earned respect, not through alien lineage, not through status, but through ingenuity, courage, and determination. In the days following the battle, the kingdom began to recover. Systems damaged in the attacks were repaired, and defenses were strengthened using the combined knowledge of human and alien engineering. Cale Thorne and his loyalists were imprisoned, their threat neutralized. Ethan and Lyra worked tirelessly, not only rebuilding but improving the kingdom's infrastructure. Hidden technologies were activated, making the kingdom stronger than it had ever been. Citizens began to see the human as a hero, and the princess, once labeled ugly and underestimated, became a symbol of resilience and wisdom. The council, having witnessed the human's abilities firsthand, slowly began to shift their mindset. They had laughed at Ethan Cross, dismissed him as weak and foolish. Now, they realized that strength was not measured by appearance, species, or tradition. It was measured by courage, intelligence, and the ability to act when it mattered most. One evening, Ethan and Lyra stood together on the balcony overlooking the city. The sky was filled with stars, and the hum of energy systems created a steady, reassuring rhythm. "We've done it," Lyra said quietly. "The kingdom is safe, and the council has begun to see the truth." Ethan smiled. "Yes, but we can't stop here. There will always be challenges. There will always be those who doubt us. But now, they will think twice before underestimating humans. Or you." Lyra placed her hand on his. "Together, we've changed the kingdom. Perhaps one day, the galaxy will see that humans are not weak, and that strength comes in many forms." He had never imagined that a simple human from Earth could become a defender of a galactic kingdom, a partner to a princess, and a symbol of hope. But here he was, standing at the heart of the Orion stellar kingdom, having defied expectations, shattered prejudice, and proven that humans could achieve greatness. The stars twinkled above, brighter than ever, as if celebrating the rise of a new era. An era where courage mattered more than lineage, where creativity could defeat arrogance, and where a human and a princess had reshaped the destiny of an entire kingdom. Ethan knew that their journey was far from over. Other threats would come, challenges would arise, and the galaxy would continue to test them. But with Lyra at his side, he felt ready to face anything. They had faced doubt, danger, and prejudice, and they had triumphed. For the first time, the Orion stellar kingdom truly understood the meaning of strength, not in appearances, not in tradition, not in titles, but in heart, mind, and courage. And humans, once dismissed and laughed at, had proven themselves worthy of respect across the stars. As Ethan looked at Lyra, he realized that the king's choice had not been a mistake. It had been a vision of a human who could see possibilities others ignored, who could think in ways no alien could, and who could stand beside a princess to protect a kingdom and change the galaxy forever. Together, human and princess, they had written the rules. Together, they would face the future, undaunted, unshaken, and unstoppable. And somewhere, beyond the far reaches of Orion's space, the galaxy whispered the story of the human who inherited a princess, and in doing so, changed everything.